Hi there. So we are done discussing about the first two conic sections, circle and parabola. We now move on to the third conic section. To start, recall that given these cones, we can slice this up in such a way that we'll obtain this figure out here. This figure is what we call an ellipse. So in this video, we'll be discussing, or more specifically, we'll be defining what an ellipse is. So, an ellipse is defined as the set of all points wherein the sum of the distances to two fixed points is constant. So as you can see, the definition out here is quite difficult to understand. So we'll try to understand this definition part by part. So first, let's denote the set of all points out here as P. So our points will take of the form P1, P2, P3, and so on. Aside from this, the two fixed points out here is called the foci, or the plural of focus, since we have two fixed points out here. We denote this as the point F1 and F2. So let's illustrate this in a figure. So this is a figure of an ellipse, and we know that the set of all points out here is this whole ellipse out here, since this one is a bunch of points. Then let's choose three arbitrary points. So we have P1, P2, and P3. Now how about the foci? The foci is located here and here. So we have the first focus out here and the second focus. Take note that this figure out here is not drawn to scale, but it's just used to represent the definition of an ellipse. So if we focus first on this first point in the ellipse, and we take its distance to the first and second focus, then add this up, so we'll have this. Next, if we do the same for this second point, so we take its distance to the first and the second focus and add them up. By definition, we know that the sum of these distances from the point to the foci is constant. So when we say constant, then it's not changing. So even if we take a point out here, so the sum of distances is represented by this, and we take another point out here, so the sum of distances is represented by this. These two are not changing, or in other words, these two are equal, since we have a constant sum of distances. So that is how an ellipse works, or its definition works. And we can do the same for this third point. Let's take its distance to the first and the second focus. If we add these two up, we also know that this sum of distance is also equal to the first two sum of distances that we obtained. So that is the definition of an ellipse. So as you can see, it seems really special, since just by placing the focus at the right place in this ellipse, we'll obtain this magical thing in ellipse. So yeah, that is the definition of an ellipse. So I hope that by this time you have a nice understanding already on what an ellipse is and how it works. in the next video, we'll be discussing its parts as well as its equation, the different orientations, the ellipse form, standard form, how to graph it, and such. So yeah, that's it, and that's all for this video.